Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's session. My name is Hassam Husseini, and I lead the Reactor in Abu Dhabi here for this region. As you know, the Microsoft Reactors are hubs for founders and developers to meet, learn, and connect to local peers, as well as to learn from industry-leading experts and the community leaders in Azure all about the recent technology updates and what's happening in this ecosystem. Throughout today's session, we will be having a diverse sort of technologies and tools that will be covered. So I highly encourage you to be interactive in the chat, ask questions, and benefit the most out of today's session. It's a pleasure here to be with you. It's been a great start of the year. And in today's session, we are talking about mobile DevOps. So basically, the motivation behind this is that when you are working on delivering a high-quality mobile application, this could be challenging. Not only you need to understand how the app is being used, but also be able to identify and fix any issues. And when these issues are fixed, you need to test, republish the app, and get new releases to the users as soon as possible. And throughout this process, and you need to automate and do these steps in as quick as possible and as efficient as possible. So there will be lots of usage for continuous integration and continuous delivery. So CI/CD system is an essential part in this process. And in today's session, we are going to discuss how we run mobile DevOps within our Microsoft apps and within Microsoft. We'll look at the App Center UI test, App Center analytics, and much more. And on today's session, we are joined by Ali Reza, and he is a senior engineer, and he is a global technical team member at Microsoft who advises and trains Microsoft enterprise customers worldwide within the dev and apps infrastructure domain. Furthermore, Ali does architectural session on how to utilize Azure in the most efficient and reliable way. He's a hands-on DevOps software architecture and automation and migration expert. We're so excited to have you, Ali, with us. I'm adding you to the stream. Thank you for joining us on today's session.
Thank you very much. Nice introduction, Hussam. So yeah, I will actually try to get straight to it. So yeah, as Hussam said, I'm a CE based here out of Copenhagen, Denmark, and today we're going to talk about ecosystem around mobile applications. I will try to share my screen for a second, Hussam. So let me just see how this works here. And again, guys, any questions you have, and just feel free to ask them. I will keep an eye on that, just to make sure I answer all questions.
Yeah, a quick reminder, since this is a Microsoft event, we follow the code of conduct. So let's keep this environment friendly. We're all here to learn. Let's be aware of each other, friendly and patient at all time, and respectful to others. And all these 6 major points, I would say, are the basis of our friendly interaction, I would say, in the chat. So I'm waiting for your screen, Ali.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to share it now. Let me know if it...
Yeah, now I have it. It's on the screen. So I'm going to go down now the stage, and I'll leave you to the session. Meanwhile, for everyone, I'll be in the behind the scenes looking at your comments. So let us know, maybe for a start, where are you joining us from? And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, I'll be happy to bring that to the screen as well, and for Ali to discuss and share his insights about it.
Thank you very much, Hussam. So yeah, my name is Ali. I'm a custom engineer. I work in a global team. So we engage with all continents. I've been around the world working with all our customers. I'm based here out of Denmark, which is a small country in the Northern Europe. And we are, I think, around 6 million people. And this background image is from within the city. Our city have a lot of canals, so there's plenty of opportunities to sail around if you like to do that. And besides that, a lot of restaurants and cafes. So if you like to visit Denmark, then feel free to ping me on the LinkedIn, and then we can start to do something. Besides that, so in my work, again, I travel around the world. I've been to US, Africa, Asia, and Europe to work with different customers, and I do anything related to Azure, Azure DevOps, implementing ecosystems. And one of my favorite topics is definitely mobile applications, and also to learn our customers on how to implement that in best practice. I can see no, okay, just let me know if there's any questions and during my presentation. So again, my prior before joining Microsoft, I was part of different product teams, building music applications, competitor for Spotify, lots of different applications for supermarkets, universities, and that's my background before joining Microsoft. So yeah, that's always been my interest, writing code, basically. So the platform I'm using today is called Xamarin, where you have the possibility to write .NET and write your mobile applications in .NET, and then it will still compile to a native platform. And one of our, I would say, missions from Microsoft perspective is that we want you to give the possibility to write .NET once, and then compile to all different clients, And now with the .NET 6, we included the Xamarin framework in .NET Core 6. So that means that they're actually going to target one .NET, and then again, that opens up the possibilities for even more interesting architecture, where it's going to be even easier to share knowledge between the platforms. I personally really believe in this approach that you can share knowledge across different platforms, and this is the platform I'm going to use today. Today's session is not going to be on Maui; it's going to be on the ecosystem. So how you build and release and keep your apps up to date. But we might do another session or some other time where we can do run through the Maui, the new platform that is going to be released soon. So let me just close my PowerPoint here. So one of the ecosystems that we help our customers with is, of course, generally speaking, of course, we say that you should shift left on everything. So shift left means that you do the things as early as possible in your development stage when you build applications. So there could be mobile apps, that can be backend APIs, that can be infrastructure applications, front-end applications. We generally say that in any kind of ecosystem, try to shift left, because the earlier you test and the earlier you fail, then the cheaper it's going to be for the whole company. And of course, when the bad thing happens in production, then you should have some kind of ecosystem so you can recover as fast as possible. And today I'm going to go through how we do build and release our own applications, like the Microsoft Office apps, the Excel apps, all the Microsoft apps we have. I would not say that each product team exactly doing it the same way. They're using different tools in their setup, but the concept is very similar. You have to have some kind of strategy. How can you how to implement this end-to-end ecosystem? And this is what we do, across all product teams. So first of all, you can have your repository or where you have your code it can be in Azure DevOps, and nowadays we're also, of course, using GitHub, and this is where everything is moving to. And then on top of that, we have some services in a platform called App Center, and App Center gives you possibility to utilize some services that can help you leverage your mobile apps in the best possible way. So one of the most exciting things about App Center is the possibility to test across devices, right? Real physical devices. So we have the cloud that actually consists of many hundred devices, and you can actually send your iOS or your Android artifact to that platform, and then say, okay, I want to test on these 10 different devices, and then you can basically run your UI automation on top of that. When I used to build mobile applications since 2008, we used to do the testing in hand. So we used to purchase the most, I can say, common devices, and then we used to basically test in our hands. And it was really costful operation because you spend a lot of time and you want to do consistent testing. You want to make sure all devices have batteries fully charged, and you want to and then all of a sudden new devices occur, and then you have to purchase those. So testing generally on mobile apps is a very painful process if you don't have such thing as App Center or a cloud of devices. And then usually what we do is actually we release our Microsoft apps as a dog food. So we release, let's say, the Office apps before it's released to the public, for the public stores. We actually distribute it internally, so the Microsoft employees can try out the Microsoft applications. And once we see the feedback is good, no big issues is happening, then finally we can go to production. And we also have automation for that as well, both in App Center, but also some distribution tasks directly that you can utilize in Azure DevOps. I'm gonna go through that as well. Then on top of it, although you do all the testing, with the UI test and the beta testers and everything, sooner or later the bad thing is going to happen in production, and then it's really important that you have something that that you have some kind of monitoring that gives you direct feedback. The worst thing I know as a developer, and this is what I had my own experience, is that somebody from support call you and say, hey, there's something wrong with the iOS, when the user clicks here and there, and then the application crashes and we don't know exactly what's going on. Just take a look at it. And that's the worst thing you can tell to a developer, because developer will say, okay, but what happened until that exception, and what exactly occurred, and which kind of device was it? A lot of information. So for me as a developer to understand what the issue was, this is also time that I have to spend, and this can also be part of this is also part of the ecosystem, right? Because the longer time it takes for me to understand the issue, the longer time it's also going to take in the end to fix and release the hotfix, right? So that's why it's really important to have proper monitoring in place. I'm not saying, some customers forget to put the focus on this, and this I'm also going to show you how we can utilize App Center and application insights on top of it to understand our users better. On top of it, then you have a program manager, or or in a company you can have a project manager that then have to prioritize what is most important. Is it the bug fix, or is it the feature? And always the business stakeholders, they are focusing on how can you say, maybe on business features. So it's really important that these issues are reported in, so that the project manager is aware of, okay, there's actually happening some bad things. So maybe we should not only focus on business, but features, but also on fixing the bugs. So this type of report, it can be visualized in the Power BI, setup, and that then you can for the next iteration, then you can plan, okay, what should we focus on? Should we focus on stabilization, or should we focus on features? So to implement this ecosystem, I have, we have these what we call Microsoft hosted agents. And these Microsoft hosted agents is like a virtual machine, we can say, or is actually a container that have some capabilities. And these agents can then do things on behalf, like an automation process, right? Because usually as a developer, I will build the application, then I will test it, and then I might use different tools and setup. And of course, next time I want some cloud service to do that for me. So just to see what we have, Microsoft hosted agents in GitHub. So always is a good thing to be aware of capabilities are of these Microsoft agents. And whether you use GitHub or you use Azure DevOps, then the agents are actually the same. You know, it's the same agents with the same capabilities, and it's always a good idea to go in here and look at which agents we have possible, and then which ones you want to use. For instance, in the iOS setup, you can of course not build the iOS application on Windows or Linux, so you have to use a Mac OS. And then for me to understand, okay, do I have the CLI tools I need? Then I can go into the Mac OS agent and then see what possibilities I have here. For instance, today I know that I want to use App Center, and I know I want to use Xamarin, and I know I want to use Xcode, right? So let me just see if I have these things installed, and I can see that, okay, the App Center CLI is installed in this Mac OS 11, so this is great. This is because I'm going to use the App Center for the UI test, and then I can see Xamarin is also installed, and that's great. And let me see Xcode and command lines, and I see different versions of Xcode is also installed. So this way I can, I can see which tools I have. I can see there's some comment that you cannot read what is on the screen. Just let me know, guys, if I need to zoom in. Is it possible to read everything? Let me know. So anyway, once I decide the agent I want to build on, then of course I know how to set this up, right? So I have two pipelines, two end-to-end pipelines for my automation. And these two pipelines is both going to test my application, both the integration test, like the test against the APIs, the UI test, and finally it's going to release to the App Center. And then after that, it's going to release to Google Play and App Store. So of course, you would usually have this in the context of maybe in a test environment. So like Google Play Test, Google Play Production, and then you can distinguish between different environments. But just to keep it simple here, I just have one called Google Play and one called iOS App Store. So if you look down here, I have different here I have different stages, and this is a typical, it's also something that the product team set up, but again, some of them use GitHub, some use Azure DevOps, but the concept is very similar, what the product teams do. So, first of all, we have the build, then we do the integration testing, and then we do the UI testing, and finally a release to Google Alpha, and then Google Production. And if you talk about this shift left, then it's always also, if you believe in this test-driven development, which I personally believe in, then we can say that every time the developer develops a new UI or a new feature, then that developer can also be responsible for writing the equivalent test script. And I think that could be a good practice. So if I write a new collection view or a new UI, then I should also write the equivalent UI test. So instead of me going and poke the tester on the shoulder and say, hey, can you test it? Then maybe I can do it by automation. So I have some consistent testing and quick feedback. So this can be part of your, let's say, Git strategy also, or your development strategy, that you shift left on these things and implement it. Anyway, so let's go to the applications that I have. Again, these applications could be written in Android Studio or could be written in Xcode, or in my case, I have used Visual Studio. But finally, these applications is actually going to result in a native UI. So in this case, what I did actually is just one application here that I have. On the left side, I have the iOS, then I have the Android, and the right side, I have the UWP version. So right now I'm on a Windows machine. So for this to be possible, then I need to connect to a Mac OS build machine in order to do that. So anyway, so this is a login page. I just want to show you. I'm not going to go into the cross-platform capabilities. We can do that in another session. But anyway, I just want to show you that we have an application here, and I want to make sure that I can do testing and I can implement the ecosystem on top of this application. And what this application can do is it can just add some fruits to the screen. It's based on this vector graphics actually. So there's just some fruits here that I can actually resize up and down because it's vector graphics, so it doesn't have a specific resolution. But what I want to test is that, okay, if I click 10 times here, then I expect to have 10 fruits, right? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I click 10 times, then I expect the number to be 10. And if I remove 5, then I expect the number to be 5, right? For some reason, it might be that I have some issues on this application that for some reason it doesn't show 5 fruits, but it shows 2 fruits, right? So this could be a UI bug, right? So in order to test this, then I have written some test script. The first thing, whatever kind of UI test framework you use, you have to make sure that the tester or the QA engineer writing the test or the developer herself or himself is possible to write queries against the screen. So for me to interact with this UI, I have to set some identifiers on each control. Okay. So let me just stop this debugger now and let me just stick to the Android version. So here I have the Android emulator. So let me just run the Android alone again. So let me just close this one here. So now let's say I'm the Android developer and I want to test my Android UI, right? So for me to be able to do that, then I have to set again some identifiers. This can be in your Android is usually it's a XML like layout, and then on iOS is this declarative kind of UI. I think it's called Swift UI or something like this. But in both cases, you have to set some identifiers. So now let me just go to the login page and let's see. So what I want to make the test first, the first test I want to make is that when I click the login button, I want to make sure that it navigates to home page. So I need to, first of all, what do I need to identify? I need to identify the login button, and then I need to identify something on the home page, right? So for that to be possible, then I can write some identifiers. And let me see while it's starting here. Maybe I should give it a restart. I'm not sure. Anyway, so in this case, I have an attribute here, and this is of course Xamarin specific, but in the iOS native and the Android native, you have to use something called accessibility label. Okay. But in this case, I have an attribute called automation ID. And my automation ID is set to login button. So when I make a query against the screen, then I expect to get an ID back, a UI element back that is called login button. This will tell me that I am on the login page, right? So I have automation button for the crash button. I have automation ID for the login button, and that's fine. So now I'm just doing it manually by hand, just to understand the UI, and then afterwards I will write the UI automation for this. So the next thing I'm navigating to is my, let me see, what do I navigate to? I'm navigating to my collection page, right? So my collection page contains these fruits. And then, so for me to make sure I'm in the collection page, then I have set something here, automation ID collection page. So that means that if I'm able to log in, then the next thing, if I can query collection page, this will tell me that I was able to log in successfully, right? And so this is maybe very, very simple UI test for login. So I know that if I am if I'm able to find the submit button, and then I'm after the click, I'm able to find the login, the collection page, and I know that okay, this can be tested properly. Okay. So always in the Android situation or scenario, you will have an APK file or an AAB file, which is a bundle file, and in the iOS version, you will have an IPA file. Okay. And this is what I'm going to test against. So the UI test will use the binary, the artifact from the mobile app, and then the test, the test DLL file, that we're going to use. So I have here a UI test project, and this is just using some couple of artifacts here. So even though you have a native app, you can actually still use Visual Studio and this UI test automation to write your UI test. So to initiate the application, there's a couple of ways to do it. In this case, I'm just saying that the bundle of the application is what I want to identify. And if I find that one, then I want to start it up, and then I want to do my testing. Then in my test class, I have a couple of things, okay? A couple of methods. So I have, let me just close this out down for the readability. So I have basically 3 tests. I have backdoor test, I have login test, and I have add and remove root test. So let me just start with the first simple one, the login test. So just to show you how I'm gonna write this, the first time, of course, maybe I don't know which code to write, right? So I have to understand the UI. So in order to do that, then let me just rebuild, first of all, this project. And then when I rebuild this project and I get this test explorer, will give me the output like, okay, how many tests do I have? Okay. So here now it generates, I don't know if it's visible, but it's actually generated that there is 3 test methods for the UI. I'm just gonna invoke this login test. So first of all, to understand the UI, then I can call this app.repl, which is going to give me a terminal that I then can interact with and understand like what is on the screen. Let me just start the application here, and then let me just manually run this test, the login test. So of course, when I develop the application, the test first time I do it by hand. The next time when I execute it on the cloud, then it's going to do it by automation, right? So let me just run it here, debug it here. Any questions, any doubts, guys? I'm keeping my eye on the comments. So just let me know if you have something which is you're not sure or you need some explanation. So I'm here to answer all questions, right? So let me just start the first test. So now when I'm executing first, I'm saying app.repl. So it's going to give me this terminal so I can get the view tree in order to understand the UI. Hopefully it's going to start up soon here in a couple of seconds. Let me see. Okay. Let me just restart it again. Debug. And because it's a cross-platform application, then the identifiers is going to be the same, right? So the same identifier for iOS and Android. And let me see here. Why is it not starting? Let me just do this. Yeah. Let me just restart this, guys. I don't know why is it. Of course, always when you have to present it, then you have issues. Anyway, let me just try. So actually what I'm doing here is I'm saying that mark the username field, type in admin, mark the password field, type in ABCD1234. Then I'm taking a screenshot, and then I'm clicking on the login button. Let me just try one last time, and if it's not working, I'm just going to proceed and explain to you how it's working. So this is what it's going to happen. This is what it's going to be executed on the cloud on the App Center. Actually, once I'm happy with this test. Another test that I have here is the backdoor test. Sometimes we see customers that let's say that you have login page, product detail 1, login page, product detail 2. And then if you think of it, you're actually navigating to login page, product page every time. So you spend like 66% of the time on the login page and product page just to go to another detail page. And if you think about the time execution, then you actually want to save some time. So in order to sometimes you say, okay, I don't want to do repetitive UI testing. I don't want to test login page every time. Then you can use backdoor capabilities just to skip to and say, okay, I want to go directly to product page 5. I want to directly go to product page 6. So this way you can navigate and hack your navigation, so you don't have to go through the whole navigation tree. And this is like a private method that you can like invoke in your application in order to do that. Actually, I don't know why it's the REPL is not working here, so I'm not going to spend so much time on it because it's not so important. But it's just to understand the concept here, that this way I can interact with it. There is a couple of different methods here. There's swipe, there's scroll, there's screenshot. Just to so do everything you can do by hand, you can also do it by this UI automation. Let me just try it the last time here. If it's not working, I'm just going to proceed because it's not so important. Okay. So what I'm actually doing here, I'm just saying that type in username, password, and then take a screenshot of the login page. So when the tester or the QA engineer going to look into the test result, then she or he is going to see that, okay, there's a right screenshot of the login page, then a screenshot of the collection page. And then finally, I'm saying that if the logout button, if it can find any elements which have the text logout button, then I know that I'm on the logins, I'm on the home page, on the collection page. And now it actually starts the REPL that I was talking about. So with this REPL, I can query the screen and understand which UI elements is on the screen so I can interact with it. Let me just show it to you here, and then after that, we'll proceed to App Center. So the first time I developed the application, I want to understand again what is the UI element. So let me just write help here first, just to see it's like what commands I have available. It says, okay, help prints the help screen, copies the command history to the clipboard. So if I'm writing some commands and I want to copy it to my UI test, then I can do it by just writing copy. But first of all, I want to understand the UI, right? So it says if you write tree, then it prints a tree of the app view elements. So let me just write tree here. So, oh, okay, this looks interesting. There's a login button here, right? So for me to click on, so I want to write a login test. So I'm interested in clicking on this login button. So for me to do that, then I can say, okay, app, and there's a method called tab. And then I can just say write UI here, and I can say UI mark. So I want to tap on an element which have the text login button. So I can just write here mark. So I'm actually writing C# code directly in the terminal, and this C# code can then be copied back to my UI test method. So here I can just write login button, and then I close this lambda like this. And I'm not touching the screen right now, so let's see what happens. Let's see if it's possible to do this interaction. So it says tapping coordinate. Okay, it actually found the UI button. So this is great. And I'm not touching the UI, it's actually done by this automation. And then hopefully it logs in after some time. And now it's logged in. So now I can say tree again and then understand what is the what do I have possible here, and then I can see, oh, I have log out. So in this case, now I want to click on the log out. So yeah, it's Xamarin UI test. Like I say, Tom have a question. It's a Xamarin UI test. But again, you can use any other you want. There's a couple of them that actually is supported. So now I'm just saying log out button, and then I want to log out. So this way I can make this UI test, right? I'm not touching it. So once I'm happy with this, then I can say that, okay, I finished the developed feature. So this can be a policy that you can have on your development team to say that whenever you are a developer, you develop a new UI feature, then you should also write the UI test for it. So I'll just write exit here, and I'll just close this now. So now let's say I have an APK file, I have IPA file for iOS, and I have my UI test. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is I want to test it on App Center. So now it's actually executing the rest of the test. That's why it's writing admin. So you can do all of the things, that you can do by hand. I'm still not touching the UI. Anyway, let me close this now, because else we'll run out of time. So once I've written the UI test, then of course I'm going to push in my code to my repository, and that hopefully is going to trigger the rest of the ecosystem, right? So let me just open App Center here. So the next thing you want to do is you want to go to App Center, and this is actually the Office apps. Next thing you want to do is go to App Center, and let me just open a new tab here. So you will create a project, in order to utilize this App Center, and in that project is going to be the host for the UI test, is going to be the host for the analytics, and for the crash reporting. So to run a new UI test, then you can click up here and say new test run. And now it's really important that you test on the devices that your users have. Sometimes I have spoken with companies that say, okay, we burn 30 hours each month on only one device. And then I ask, okay, so the purpose of the App Center is not to use just one device, because if you use just one device, then why you want to use App Center? You can just use on your own machine and just test on one device. So when you want to test on when you want to utilize App Center in the best possible way, you should pick the devices that your users have, and this is based on the analytics, and then you use the breadth of devices. So how many devices? So do a little bit of testing, but on many devices. This way you can get the best results instead of just focusing on one or two devices. So we have most of the devices here, the most popular ones. So you can see we have Samsung, we have OnePlus. I personally have, I like the OnePlus, so I will test on that because often many of my users have that. I have also some of my applications, I have many downloads on it, and I always keep an eye on which are the most used ones. Generally speaking, and the applications I have seen, the Samsung devices are actually the ones that are most used. But anyway, so you will pick the devices that you want. So let's say that I have an HTC and I want to have the Samsung, and there's hundreds and hundreds of devices. This is just Samsung, okay? There's many different devices. So, and this is like, how are you ever going to purchase this many devices? It's impossible. And how are you going to get those old versions? And this is what's really cool about App Center is they have all of these devices, and these devices, guys, is not an emulator. It's a real device, okay? It's a real device. So you can see they have all the way down to some of the oldest Android versions. Anyway, I will pick a couple of devices here. So now I have, I think, chosen HTC and Samsung Galaxy, okay? And maybe one more Samsung Galaxy. So then here I can see there's one question, Ionic. So yeah, it does work with Ionic. It works with every kind of mobile app. It's just you should be able to make query against the screen. It doesn't matter which framework it's using. You can use these test frameworks, or Appium, Calabash, Espresso, Xamarin UI test. So even if your application is not a Xamarin application, you can still use Xamarin UI test because it doesn't know what is running on the device. Is it the React Native application? Is it a Xamarin? It doesn't know. And personally, I don't think it's important which framework you're using. You should just be able to use one framework that can just make some queries against the screen and get some result feedback. I think that's the most important, not the framework itself. But that's a personal opinion. So I'm not saying that's correct for everyone. And then the other thing is you can pick the device, the language of the device. So if you want to have test against different languages, then you can do that. Finally, you get a test script, okay? So it says that if you want to execute this test, of course, you can do it from your local machine. But in my case, I like to do it from Azure DevOps or maybe from GitHub or maybe from other versioning. So it's up to you how you want to do it. But in this case, I want to do it on Azure DevOps. So what is it saying is that you need to have Node.js installed. So the first time you want to execute from your local device or your local development machine, you have to install Node.js. And then you need to install the apps in the CLI. And as we saw from the hosted agent, it had already apps in the CLI installed. So I don't need to do that because it's already having it. And then it gives me these 2 lines of script. So the first one is, it says the organization name, then the devices. This one is the most interesting because this hash key here is a combination of devices. So if I remove one device, it's going to give me another hash. If I add one device, it's going to give me another hash. So this hash is a combination of the devices that you picked, basically. And then you can copy paste this and put it into your automation. So I did that in my pipeline. So you can see here, I'm at this point now where I want to do UI test. So at this test, in this stage, I'm executing the CLI tool to interact with those devices, right? So when I reach that point, then I have to test here. I have tested both the Android and the iOS, and actually even I executed the test yesterday for Android, and it's actually already on Google Play. So you can download it on Google Play if you like to test the application. So the Android, I'm just clicking, 5 times, and then I'm removing some fruits, and then I'm expecting to have only 2 fruits. So if I click 5 times, I have 5 fruits, then it's okay. And then I remove 3 fruits, and I have 2 fruits left, then it's okay. So I know that this result will be okay. So if I have only 1 fruit on one of them, then the pipeline will fail. I'm gonna say, hey, maybe on some specific device it fails. And then I'm doing the login test. So login, I'm typing in admin and the password. Then I'm clicking on the submit button, and then I expect to be on the collection page. And the cool thing about this is that you can actually go in and diagnose each test run. So let's say I want to go into the Google Pixel 4 session, then you can actually go in and see what happened during the test. So you can see that there's a spike in the memory usage, and this is most likely because I added like the number of fruits, right? So the more fruits you add, the more memory you will use. So this is maybe the spike. But sometimes you have unexpected spike in your memory usage in the mobile app, and this is where the case that maybe you're having a memory leak, right? So this kind of diagnostics is really going to be useful because it's going to give you the feedback, like if there's something bad happening. So I'm going to speed up a little bit, guys, because I can see we're running out of time. So you can also go to the device log and then see that if the application crashed, then okay, you can go in and see what was the stack trace and then start diagnosing that, right? I'm going to go a little more faster now. So this is how for the UI test, okay? And then I'm doing the same for the iOS. So the really cool thing is that now I don't have to do manual testing. I don't have to purchase devices. I don't have to do consistent testing. Now just doing it by automation. And even in this case, in the iOS, I'm adding many more fruits, like 40 fruits, and the memory usage is more consistent here, I would say, on iOS. But it's more of an iOS thing. So, yeah. Anyways, so finally, when I'm on the production, then at some point of time, there if you saw it here, no, now I closed it, but there was a crash button, right? So in order to understand the crash, then you can use App Center. So App Center is gonna catch the crashes that you have, and if something bad happening, then you can make it set up automatic reporting. Okay. So let me just go back here to the Android version. So the crashes it can handle unhandled crashes, like it can not handle, but it can cache the unhandled crashes, and then it will serialize the crash stack trace back to the to the app center. So I had this crash button, and it actually gave me the line in the page where the exception happened, and then it says crash clicked. So this is something I did on purpose, right? And then you get a stack trace, and this stack trace is something that the developer can use to diagnose that code. So, and then the next thing, so the good thing is that now you don't need to have a support, some person from support calling you and say, hey, this is what happened. It can just do it automation. And then on top of this, you can actually set it up so it opens up a ticket automatically in your ticket system. So if you go to the services, then you can either connect to Azure DevOps or to GitHub or to Jira if you use that. So it's up to you, right? So so this way, I know it's a small optimization, but actually it's really gonna optimize your end-to-end ecosystem, because the reporting is directly back to the product team that's then hopefully is going to fix this issue, right? So for instance, in here I have already opened a ticket which is called argument null exception, and this is not something that I have opened. This is something that was done by App Center. This is why. So this documentation here, reproduction steps, all of this. Okay, the issue happened in collection view model, and the reason is argument null exception, value cannot be null, and even it gives me a link back to the App Center so I can see the stack trace. So it's a small optimization, but it's really going to be helpful, because then we don't need to have support and those people call us. We can just go in directly and then prioritize it. The next thing you want to do is have analytics, right? You want to understand what is most important, and then on top of that, you can export your analytics to application insights. So let's say I'm covering the whole world, and I want to understand which countries are the most important ones. I don't know. Maybe it's 5 features. I don't know which country is the most important one. Okay. So I can go in here in my work items, and I'll say, okay, I'm the business stakeholder. I know that we have to implement some features, but I don't know the priority yet. So always you have a number of hours, right? Because developer, we work maybe 40 hours, how many hours you work a week, and you have to prioritize how many hours should you spend on different things. So maybe I have one ticket called Germany, and then I have maybe another ticket called maybe USA. And now this could also be a feature, right? So it's just like an example. And then you have in a situation where you have exceptions, you have features, and you don't know what to prioritize. You don't know which one is most important. This is always the thing. You don't know how to prioritize it, right? So you need to have collected some data to understand what its priority is. So if you export your data to application insights, then maybe we can get a better understanding of our users and what do we want to prioritize, because now all of them have priority too, and we don't have enough time to fix all of them at the same time. We have to choose one of them as to be the most important one. So if I go back to application insights, then this is actually from one of my own applications, which is called Halal Check, and this one is an export of all the logs that I have for the last 19 days. I have 38,000 users only on Android, and I don't know how many users I have on iOS. I have something similar, Anyway, I want to understand which countries are the most important. So maybe it can be because of translation, or maybe some features, or it can also be just the name of the feature. But in this case, I just want to understand which users are the most important ones. So AU, I think that stands for Australia, and then I have DE, which is Germany, and then I have India. So I know, first of all, Android 11, Android 10, Android 9, these are the most important to test on, because this is where most of my users are. If I only very few of them have Android 8,
and then maybe Android 5 and 6 is maybe not even relevant. So if I spend 50% of my time on testing the Android 5, then I'm basically wasting time, I would say. So, but in any case, so I know that test strategy is okay. 9, 10, 11 is the most important to do the testing on, and then AU we can just say that's the United States, and then DE is Germany. So I know that because most of my users are like the USA here, then I know there's higher priority than the DE, which is Germany. So I can go back here, and now as a project manager, I can say that okay, Italy is not so important because we don't have that many users in Italy. So maybe I will take take it to priority 5. Okay, 5 is not possible. 4, and then maybe the USA is priority 1 because I have maybe more US users. Okay, this is just a very simple example, but it's really important that when you have iteration-based development and release cycle, then you prioritize, understand what who the users are, and how you prioritize it. Okay. In this way, I know that okay, USA is the most important, and then I have to, of course, also consider the stack trace. So once this is decided, then I can then go back and fix my issue in the code. And then after that, I can also dig into like the user flows, and the user flows is gonna explain to you like what is the step that the users are going and what lead up to a specific error. Right now, I'm not having good how can I say like operation names or events here, so that's why the name of the event doesn't make much sense here. But it's just to tell you that you can log, like say that okay. I want to log that if somebody goes from product page to product page 1 to product page 2, and then the crash happens, then maybe it's because that the user clicked on these specific steps that led up to that crash. And this way, when you use this more sophisticated visualization, then you can understand that, okay, actually 20% of my users are going this route, and then they are having a crash. So maybe I have to investigate what is this route and what devices was used, In this way, you can find out that if more, tricky exceptions, then what lead up to that, And this way, you can understand the route. On top of it, you can do some more, sophisticated queries and logs, but I'm not going to go into that because I can see we are short on time. I have many more topics I can talk about, but I think we will not have time to do that. But the same analytics will be in here also in App Center. But again, if you want to have, again, the more sophisticated visualization, then of course you can set up that export so that the application insights can give you some better overview, Then the final step, which is really the important one, is the distribution. And this is how I'm going to distribute to Google Play and App Store, okay? So for the iOS case, I need to make a handshake with App Store. So I need to have my Apple set up. Like I purchased actually Apple, certificate, and I paid $100 each year. So I need to make the handshake with my App Store in order to distribute it by automation. So I can say connect, and because I'm already connected here, then I can say, okay, this APA file have to go to this host that I have on Apple. And this way, then I know that once the App Center is set up, then from my pipeline, then I can distribute the artifact. And I have done the same for the Android also. So for Android, I'm actually, of course, distributing to Google Play. Let me see, go to the distribution. So in here, I'm having my handshake with Google Play, and in this way, I can automate my build to these three different channels. So actually, if you go to Google Play, you can actually download my my application now. But you have these other 2 channels as well, and this is the same thing. You have to go to connect here, then you have to set up the app registration on Google Play, and then this way you can make that handshake. So in my pipeline, that's what I'm doing, right? So I'm having either you can use the the App Center distribution, or there's also a Google Play task. But here I have it here, Here I have it, and the last step is the Google Play distribution. Just to show you here the last thing before I close down. I actually have more other things I can talk about, but I think we'll leave that for another session. Feel free to ask me if there's any questions, guys. So just to show you, so now we have the pipeline, right? I'm not going to go into this deal. I'm just going to show it to you. So when you want to do distribution to Google Play, then either you go to apps in the distribute task, then you fill out the properties here. That's what I did for my Google Play. Or you can also use the Google Play distribution task directly. So this way that you can use Google, you can promote your Google Play, the different channel, the different channels with the alpha channel, the production channel, and the beta channel. And this way you can even update it, if you want to do like a silent release, and this sometimes the product teams does that, they just release a new version of Office app without officially doing it, and then just to see how the application is behaving, and then we can increase it by percentage, right? And there's also a possibility to do that. And also the same for Apple. And then, of course, again, once the application is released, then, of course, and then Apple's here. And then, of course, once it's released, then you have to keep an eye on the monitoring, so on App Center and Application Insights. And you can also set up alerts, or you can set up email notifications just to if something bad happens for many users. And then finally, when that exception happened, then of course the project manager have to plan it in the next iteration, right? And then you come back. So the project manager takes or program manager in this case takes the decision what to spend the product team's time on, and then for the next iteration like this. So this can be like a release cycle, or it can also be like a weekly, sprint. But it depends on how often you release, right? So of course, the more often you release, the faster you can recover from that. So I will leave the last couple of minutes here for any questions. There's more things I could talk about, but that could be for another session. Have you got CI/CD work with iOS apps, but in Xamarin, but native? Yeah, you can get the there's a Xcode task, so you can build your Xcode iOS applications. So apps in there, but was just the example. Any experience with native? Yes, I have a lot of experience with that. Feel free to add me to LinkedIn, or if you like to, to add me on LinkedIn, or just I can try to help you a bit on that. But I have experience with all of every possibility we have. I think so. Any more questions? Any doubts about this ecosystem? Yeah, thank you very much. So I would say do not be so religious about the technology here. I mean, one way or the other, just implement this ecosystem. Whether you want to use GitHub, whether you want to even use Jira or whatever you want to use, just implement the ecosystem. So, okay, monitoring is in place, UI testing is in place, and integration and validation and testing is in place, so that you can recover from bad things happening. So, yeah. So thank you very much. Hossam, you can see you come back on the screen.
Yes, thank you, Ali. It's been a great session. Thank you for sharing your experience with our community. We had the pleasure of hosting you on this Reactor session, and looking forward to having more collaborations with you in this year. Thanks for everyone who attended today's session and for interacting with us in the chat. I dropped in the chat and in the comments, basically, you are watching us on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and the different channels for the Microsoft developer and for the Reactor as well. I dropped 2 links, one of which is the Microsoft Learn module that Ali recommended for you to follow and continue the journey after today's workshop. So this is an opportunity for you to continue the learning, not stop after this session, and see how you can progress within this direction. There are a number of modules and paths that you can always explore on Microsoft Learn. And we will be having live sessions like today with Ali and with experts as well across the reactors. This is where you will get the chance to ask questions, interact, and learn all about what's happening in the technology space, what's happening in the different tools and technologies and updates that are happening. So again, thank you, Ali, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
A wonderful session.
Happy coding. All right, guys. Thank you.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Goodbye.